let's cut to the chase. Lesson planning is hard. Today, we're going to talk about common mistakes that I've seen as a professor in the College of Education, as well as experienced as a teacher. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Stacy Vaught, and today we're going to be talking about some of those big mistakes that I often see when students submit their lesson plans to me. If you are working on a lesson plan right now, if you are preparing to have an evaluation with your administrator and you're really stuck on making sure your lesson plan is ready, take these tips along with you, double check your lesson plan, and you will be ready to teach your students. Don't forget, as we get started, to like and subscribe, and let's talk about lesson planning. All right, I'm going to make this quick and simple for you. Lesson planning is hard. Oftentimes, it's almost like a puzzle that teachers are trying to fit together to make sure that you are teaching your students the best that you possibly can. So, as a professor in the College of Education, I see lesson plans all the time. And I see these big mistakes that come in time after time with lesson planning. So I wanted to share those with you. Also, as a classroom teacher, I made these same mistakes. So if you're looking at your lesson plan and you're thinking, oh, I did that too, know that many, many teachers make these mistakes. Mistake number one, trying to fit too many standards in your lesson plans. Remember, when you're creating your lesson plan, the focus is what are my students going to learn and what skills am I going to measure so that I know that they have learned that. Even if you are reinforcing skills that align with other standards, you do not have to include all of them in your lesson plan. Focus on the standards that you are teaching and measuring in your lesson plan. Number two, when you are outlining your standards, start with your standard, what am I teaching, and then go to the end of your lesson. This is called backwards design. How am I going to make sure that I am teaching that standard? What am I going to do to measure that my students know or have mastered that standard? And make sure that those align. I see it time and time again. I'll have a standard that says write upper and lowercase letters, and the lesson is focusing on writing the letter T and the letter D. And you know what? They're assessing that a student can write sentences. Those are not the same things. They are not aligned. Make sure that your standard and your assessment are connected. Number three, make sure that if you do teach more than one standard in your lesson, which is common because we have so many standards that we're trying to teach, that they complement one another. If you are working on a lesson plan and you decide that your standards are going to be talking about opinion writing and narrative writing, these are two different types of writing. You would not commonly put those in one lesson together. So you need to be careful when you are selecting more than one standard for your lesson that they complement each other in that final assessment. Think about backwards design again. What am I trying to get them to do? In this lesson, I want them to write an opinion. Do you like chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream? That is something different than a narrative, right? Where they're writing a story. So make sure that if you are having them write an opinion piece, find additional standards that maybe complement their conventions. And do they have a capital letter and a period at the end? Or that they can use a text to help them identify the opinion of what type of ice cream they want. Those standards can complement one another. So be very, very careful when you are selecting more than one standard that they work together. And then the final piece that I see over and over, and this is more common in the early childhood, K or birth, if you will, through third grade, is developmentally appropriate activities. Again, if we go back to our letter T and D, you're going to have them write the letters T and D. And all of a sudden, at the end of your lesson, you want them to write a paragraph about their favorite type of dog. That is not developmentally appropriate for what you're trying to teach them. Remember, learning builds in a lesson. So if you are working to have them write the letters T and D, then you need to do something at the very end that is going to complement that. Don't jump ahead thinking that your students are ready for that. We will talk about differentiation and how we can challenge our students or how we can support those that are still struggling in another video. But for right now, remember the skills that you will find in your state that are aligned with each grade level are developmentally appropriate for what they need to learn. Remember, when you find your standard, go to the end, create an assessment that aligns with that standard. You will know that it is developmentally appropriate for your grade level, that it is aligned. You're not trying to put too many lessons or too many standards in one lesson plan. And remember, find multiple standards that connect and complement one another. Do not try to force standards that have different skills into one lesson. So we've talked about some of the big mistakes that I see when I'm looking at lesson plans. Remember, look at your lesson plan. Start with your standard and then go to the very end. What are you going to do to measure that? Everything else will fall into place.